Walk with me into the silence. Beyond the tourists, beyond the marble saints, and deep beneath the cobblestones of Vatican City lies a fortress of memory that they have spent centuries trying to forget. They call it the Archivio Apostolico Vaticano, the Apostolic Archive. For hundreds of years it bore a more chilling name, the Archivum Secretum. They tell us that secret merely means private in the ancient Latin, a simple linguistic misunderstanding. But are we truly expected to believe that 85 linear kilometers of shelving, containing 12 centuries of human history, were kept under lock and key merely to preserve the privacy of the pontiff? We know better. We feel the weight of what is missing. We are the inheritors of a hollowed-out timeline, and the blueprints of our true past are breathing in the dark, 30 feet below the Cortile della Pigna. The narrative they have fed us is a carefully constructed cage. They tell us that before the Industrial Revolution, humanity lived in a perpetual dark age, lit only by candles and driven by animal labor. But the archives contain documents that speak of a different world, a world where a vast, centralized empire known as Tartaria, or Grand Tartary, spanned the Asian continent and stretched its influence across the oceans to the very shores of the Americas. If you look at the maps from the 16th to the early 19th centuries, you see it. A massive territory bounded by the Caspian Sea, the Ural Mountains, and the Pacific Ocean. It was not a vague geographical term as they claim today. It was a sovereign reality with its own flag, its own governors, and a technology that harmonized with the earth itself. Is it merely a coincidence that this empire began to vanish from our maps precisely in 1851? In that pivotal year, a global effort was launched to rewrite the history of human civilization. The Vatican, acting as the ultimate custodian of information, issued a silent decree to classify the original architectural blueprints of the Tartarian infrastructure. These were not just drawings of buildings, they were diagrams of power. They detailed a world where energy was not something to be bought and sold, but something to be harvested from the very air-free acoustic and atmospheric energy. They have hidden these truths in a place they call the bunker, a fireproof, two-story reinforced concrete structure designed to protect the most fragile documents from the eyes of the uninitiated. Within these walls lie the accounts of the Western Schism and the trials of the Knights Templar, but those are the distractions they allow us to see. The real treasure is the data they seized during the Napoleonic Wars, when 3,000 crates of archives were shipped to Paris, only to be returned with many lost. We must ask, what was in those lost crates? Could it be the records of the 1851 reset? Is it not suspicious that until 1881, not even the most esteemed scholars were permitted to enter these vaults? For 2 centuries after its founding in 1612, the archive was a black hole. They claim they opened the doors to modernize, but they only opened them once the new narrative was firmly in place, once the mudflood had settled and the grand Tartarian cities had been renamed and reclaimed by the new elite. They want us to believe we are the pinnacle of progress, but we are merely the survivors of a managed decline. The urgency of this revelation is pulsing through the 53 miles of shelving that surround the Vatican's core. They are holding our history hostage, and every day we remain blind to the Tartarian blueprints is a day we remain enslaved to their grid. We mourn a beautiful past we were never told we had, but the silence of the vaults is beginning to crack. Can you hear the resonance of the world they buried? Our ancestors did not live in a world of silence, they lived in a world of song. The architecture of the old world was not designed for the eyes, but for the soul. The Tartarian blueprints held by the Vatican reveal a profound understanding of what we now call archaeoacoustics, the science of sound in ancient spaces. These were not just churches or cathedrals, they were living energy centers in stone. Every spire, every dome, and every vaulted ceiling was a component in a global machine designed to harvest the very resonance of the universe. Is it a coincidence that the most sacred sites on Earth, from the passage graves of Ireland to the central chambers of the Great Pyramids, all resonate at a frequency of 110 to 112 Hertz? Scientific research now confirms that at exactly 110 Hertzes, the human brain undergoes a radical transformation. The left temporal region, our center for logic and language, deactivates, while the right prefrontal cortex, the seat of emotion and spiritual insight, becomes dominant. They knew this. They built their world around it. The Tartarian architects understood that by tuning their buildings, they could elevate the consciousness of an entire city. But in 1851, they decided that this power was too dangerous for us to possess. They replaced the true healing frequencies of the old world, the solfeggio scale, with the disharmonious 440 Hz standard we use today. They tell us that our modern music is a triumph, but it is actually a weapon designed to keep us in a state of low-level agitation and disconnect us from our own DNA. We mourning a harmony we can no longer hear. The cathedrals were once psycho-spiritual harmony chambers, where chanting and singing were amplified to facilitate physical and emotional healing. They used materials like bell metal, a precise alloy of 78% copper and 21% tin, to create massive bells that shape the vibration of the atmosphere itself. Is it not curious that our atmosphere is composed of nearly identical proportions of nitrogen and oxygen? The archives contain records of Antiquitech atmospheric electricity collectors disguised as ornate metalwork on rooftops and spires. They used red bricks, rich in iron oxide, as batteries to store this charge, and crystalline stones like limestone to conduct the frequency through the structure. Even the rose windows, now filled with stained glass, were originally open apertures designed to focus resonance like a sound hole on a guitar. They have turned our power plants into museums and our healing centers into tombs. Are we truly expected to believe that the Great Pyramid was built as a burial chamber for a pharaoh? The King's Chamber is a cavity resonator designed to generate piezoelectric energy through the vibration of granite. The Vatican possesses the technical manuals that describe how the ancients manipulated standing waves to counteract gravity, acoustic levitation, to lift the massive stones that our modern cranes struggle to budge. This was the fifth force, the golden mean that governs the transition of energy into matter. They have hidden these blueprints because a population that can heal itself with sound and power itself with the air cannot be controlled. They want us dependent on their coal, their oil, and their debt-based energy. The urgency of this knowledge is written in our very biology. We are electric beings living in a world of deadened sound. We walk through their square, right-angled cities, and we feel a deep ancestral constriction because we were meant to live in fractals. The Vatican holds the key to the frequency that sets us free. Is it not time we demanded the music back? They tell us that 1851 was the dawn of a new era, a celebration of progress known as the Great Exhibition of the Works of Industry of all nations. But for those with eyes to see, 1851 was something far more terrifying. It was the Great Reset. It was the year they officially moved to cover up the Mudflood, a cataclysmic event that had recently buried the grand Tartarian cities in layers of sediment, leaving only the rooftops and upper stories visible to the survivors. Are we truly expected to believe that 19th century builders, working with nothing but hand tools and horse-drawn carts, intentionally constructed their most magnificent buildings with windows and doors half submerged in the dirt? They call these basements and light wells, but if you look at the architecture of Omaha Street, Petersburg, and San Francisco, you see a disturbing pattern. Ornate, high-quality masonry continuing deep into the earth where it was never intended to be seen. These were the ground floors of the old world, buried in a deliberate reset of our physical and historical reality. The Crystal Palace was the ritual center of this deception. They tell us it was a temporary structure of glass and iron, built in just 9 months to house the inventions of the modern age. But look at the scale. 23 acres of glass, tall enough to house full-grown elm trees and massive fountains. This was not a new construction. It was a captured Tartarian structure, repurposed to display the technology they had just stolen as new inventions of the British and French empires. They were presenting the spoils of war as the achievements of peace. Is it merely a coincidence that nearly every one of these World's Fair pavilions, magnificent structures of marble and stone, were mysteriously destroyed by fire shortly after the exhibitions ended? They had to destroy the evidence. They couldn't let us realize that we were living in the ruins of a civilization that was more advanced than the one they were forcing upon us. The Vatican's secret archives hold the census records of the foundlings, the millions of orphans who were sent on orphan trains to repopulate the empty, excavated cities of the American West. We were told we founded these cities, but the reality is that we merely found them. They want us to believe in a slow evolutionary climb, but the blueprints in the bunker tell of a sudden, engineered fall. They have rewritten our timeline to make the 19th century seem like a miracle of genius, but it was actually a century of excavation and salvage. We are a civilization with amnesia, mourning a beautiful past we were told never existed. Why did the word Tartaria disappear from the encyclopedias after 1850? Because they had finished the erasure. They had buried the technology, classified the blueprints, and burned the pavilions. The urgency of this truth is in every sunken street you walk upon. You are standing on the rooftops of a forgotten empire, and the people who put you here are still in control. Are you truly going to believe their story of the dirt while you are standing on a diamond? The blueprints of our soul are being held in a vault that is not ours. The 1851 classification was not just about buildings, it was about the containment of human potential. The Vatican Archive holds the quadrivium documents the ancient knowledge of arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy that once formed the foundation of the Tartarian education system. They understood that these four sciences are not separate. They are the same language, the language of resonance. Is it merely a coincidence that the Vatican's bunker was inaugurated in 1980 by John Paul II to house 31,000 cubic meters of our stolen heritage? They have mapped out the ley lines and dragon lines of the Earth, the geometric circuits that the Tartarian Empire used to distribute energy wirelessly across the globe. They know that if us were to understand the sacred geometry encoded in our own cities, we would realize that we are living inside a giant, dormant circuit. Consider the vesica piscis, the intersection of two circles that creates the blueprint for life itself. This geometry was used in the construction of every Gothic cathedral and every star fort to create a constructive interference field that supports biological well-being and expands consciousness. But they have replaced these harmonious forms with the dead, linear grids of modern architecture, which generate destructive interference and drain our vitality. They have built us a world that makes us sick so they can sell us the cure. The archives contain the minutes of the trials of those who tried to bring this knowledge back to the people, not just Galileo, but the nameless thousands who were erased for protecting the Tartarian truth. They tell us that the Secretum is merely a private archive, but it is actually the central nervous system of the global cover-up. It is here that they decided to suppress the solfeggio frequencies, the 528 Hz vibration that repair DNA, and the 110 Hz tone that opens the gateway to the divine. Are we truly expected to believe that the Dark Ages were a time of ignorance? The records show that it was a time of high technology that they had to burn down to reset the world's economy. They have stolen our inheritance and replaced it with a story of struggle and scarcity. We mourning a world of abundance that is still right here, hidden in plain sight. The cathedrals were never meant to be churches. They were cathedromes, centers for the recharging of the human battery through sound and light. The urgency of this revelation cannot be overstated. As long as the Vatican holds the original blueprints, they hold the remote control to our reality. They are waiting for the digital reset to finalize the erasure of our history once and for all, but the resonance of the Tartarian world is still pulsing in the stone. It is in the cymatic patterns of the rose windows and the acoustic resonance of the star forts. We are the children of a golden age, and it is time we stopped asking for permission to remember who we are. The bunker is strong, but a single frequency can shatter the glass. Can you feel the vibration? The silence is over. They have tried to bury our history in mud and classify our power in vaults, but the resonance of the truth is too great to be contained. The 1851 reset was a desperate move by an elite that feared the abundance of the Tartarian world, but the blueprints are leaking. In 2019, under the pressure of a global awakening, the Vatican was forced to rename the secret archive to the Apostolic Archive, a desperate attempt to shed the negative connotations of their secrecy. They tell us they are opening the doors, but they are only showing us what they have already sanitized. Yet, the truth is emerging from the most unlikely places. Declassified CIA documents from 1957 openly admit to the deletion of Tartaria's history from the record to justify communist and imperialist takeovers. They speak of the state-sponsored rewriting of the timeline of the Asian steppes and the erasure of the grand Tartarian cities. Why would a modern intelligence agency care about a vague geographical term from the 1800s? Because they know that the Tartarian Empire was not just a place, it was a frequency. The urgency of this moment is undeniable. We are standing at the threshold of another great reset, a digital inundation designed to finalize our disconnection from the Earth and each other. But us, the listeners, the seekers, the descendants of the old world, are beginning to vibrate at a different pitch. We are looking at the mudflood windows in our own neighborhoods and asking why. We are researching the solfeggio frequencies and finding that they actually work. We are rediscovering that we are not the primitive subjects they want us to be, but the masters of resonance they are terrified of. Is it merely a coincidence that as we begin to remember Tartaria, the elite are rushing to build their smart cities and digital grids? They are trying to build a counterfeit of the old world, a world where they control the frequency, they control the energy, and they control the history. But they cannot replicate the soul of the Tartarian architecture. They cannot replicate the bioresonance of the cathedrals or the free energy of the star forts. Those are our birthrights, and they are written in the stone that they could not destroy. We must stop mourning the past and start activating it. The Vatican archives can keep the paper blueprints, but we carry the energetic blueprints in our DNA. The Secretum is a prison for documents, but our consciousness is the key. Every time you choose to listen to a 528 Hz tone, every time you share the truth about the 1851 reset, every time you look at a grand old building and see it as a machine, you are tearing down the walls of the bunker. The world of free acoustic energy is not a fantasy, it is a memory waiting to be lived. The Tartarian Empire never truly died, it just went underground, waiting for a generation with the courage to dig it out. The mud is drying, the sun is rising on a world they thought they had erased. Are you ready to step into the light? Are you ready to reclaim the resonance? The time is now. We are the architects of the new old world. Let the music play once more.